What's up, you five listeners out there? Welcome to Strange Stories the Stage. I'm having problems saying that today. Strange Stories from the Stage. Sorry for that ASMR. My bad for those wearing earbuds. That was probably not welcomed. Today, we have the amazing, incredible, hilarious Kara Morgan. We had a good talk. She's awesome. What a kind soul she is, and then just funny. And she's has a similar, she was a classical singer and has always had comedy in her soul and in her bones, and certainly tried it out from time to time throughout her life. But stayed in that that singer bubble for a long time, as I have most of my life, and still reside, make my living being a classical singer. But it was really interesting to hear how she's transitioned out of it, but also kept so much of her amazing performance skills, and her performance skills, her practice, her improv, everything that she's cultivated over the last few years, how she's able to now put it pragmatically into a job for herself, and how she makes a living doing this. And I think it's super cool, and I have a lot of respect for her. She did this for a long time with no followers, just her friends supporting her and watching. I can certainly relate to that. I'm nowhere near the amount of followers and support and fan base that she has, for good reason. She's done a hell of a job. She creates characters from scratch, and based on her own life and her own vulnerabilities, which I think is incredible. And I think you'll enjoy the podcast. Here is Kara Morgan.
Great to me. How about my levels?
You're perfect. Yeah. And it does it. This program is wild. It kind of does like its own equalization and all that, which is kind of nice. In the post, it makes me have to do very little, which is what it would have taken for me to even start my own podcast, was not to do.
Oh man,
all the editing.
100%. That's probably the biggest reason why I don't have one. A Riverside. Okay, that's really.
But
cool.
it's a cost. This is just passion. This was a passion. Not much, but this is a passion project for me. I wanted to get better at hosting and talking to people off the cuff. It almost like an improv sort of thing, but like differently on a mic, because it's more from a comedian, like stand-up sort of thing. And also because I'm just a copycat, and every stand-up that I know has a podcast. And I just want to be cool.
Of course, like I also want to be cool, and by proxy
cool.
now
Cool.
I think I am being here right now.
No, you're super cool. You're the coolest. You're just cool because you're cool, and I want to be cool like you. So how's that? Yeah.
My cat just joined the room.
Yay. I love guests.
Yeah, just FYI.
No, it's cool. So I have like form questions and stuff, but really I just want to talk to you a little bit. Just we'll
nice.
Get past all the chitter chatter and stuff, and get to some real questions and stuff.
Nice.
But it's just nice to kind of share some space with you, even if it be virtual. I have to tell you, you were, I think, the second person I called or reached out to when I started to do content creation. I was terrified to do it. It was a very big coming. As you know, you're a classical singer, and
yes,
you know that world probably as well as I do, all sides. And so, when you attempt to do things that are rather silly, or go against the grain of being perfect, of classical
yes,
trained person, it can spark some anxiety and some like, what am I doing here sort of feeling. So I just want to thank you for helping calm those demons a little bit by just answering my DM on Instagram.
Oh my gosh, of course. No, I'm so happy to hear that was of any help. 100% I get all those feelings. Very big much.
you almost have to feel like you can, well, you almost feel like you need permission from someone, but it's really just yourself, right? Like
Yes.
you need permission from yourself to do it. Yeah.
Totally. And I think like it's also what one of the tricky things is like, of course, doing what we do, we need an audience to some regard, but if that audience expects, is just expecting a certain sort of person from us, like they're used to, and also I think if those people are largely friends, which for sure, like for the first, I don't know, 12 years that I was making stuff, it was largely my friends. So
For
it's
sure.
like
Yeah.
that's another level of sort of pressure. It might not feel like you have the greatest freedom to do whatever you want because you have like these people in your mind, that will probably be the ones to see it. So I think that also makes it
Well, you know their
tricky.
value system. It's like you immediately know that
Yes.
because they align a lot of it aligns with your value system of like what's good, what's crap, what's not, and that's part of the things you discussed with them probably before you even just started to make stuff, even though they didn't know you were going to make stuff. At least that was my,
Totally.
I was like, oh, I love this show and I love the writing and I love the this and the that and the quirkiness, and then I'm putting fart jokes up online about singers, and it's like they're like, yeah, we talked about we talked about that. Not really, but like that's the feeling. You're like, this is dumb. I'm like, yeah, I do. I know it's
Yes.
dumb. But then
Yes.
when you start to be a content, like you can rip off the thing. Like, yeah, I guess I'm a content creator because that's what I do. Then you're just
Totally.
like, it's also a video game, y'all, and we have to keep the algorithm going. And
I mean,
yeah,
I still worry about that. Like
yeah,
just putting stuff out there. I'm like, well, this person's gonna see that and be like, well, you put this somewhere else. It's like so weird how like these hypothetical, but not really, because they are your friends. But will they even ever see the thing I'm worried about them seeing?
yes.
It's crazy how powerful that voice can be. And unfortunately hindering. Yeah.
Yeah, it's straight up. I don't know if you've read this book. This is my favorite book that changed me a lot was a book called The War of Art. Do you know that book?
No, I've not read that.
It's Stephen Pressfield. Pretty great book. I always tell everybody, every creator, every creative
Okay,
about it because
cool.
it talks about that thing that presses against you, that procrastinate, whatever the procrastination is, whatever reason for the reason you don't do something, whether it be a huge, like a like something like me, I've never been diagnosed, but I would assume there's this ADHD force within me that kind of
Mm.
pushes it all down or whatever. I
Mm.
have all those. Even if I don't have that, I would say I live with a lot of those symptoms and a lot of those anxieties
Yeah.
naturally,
Yep.
and I think a lot of us do. And yeah, and so to lean against that book, sort of like talks about it as a force, like a actual force that you're kind of battling, as an artist. And it really taps into the artist brain because we're such self-starters, and there's no consequence whether we put something out or not, right? Really, it's really kind of, we put it on ourselves.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that's like a writer, that's where the lens that he's a writer and he's talking through that
Mm,
lens.
okay.
Anyway, that's how that book helped me. It's a short
Man.
read. It's a real short read, and
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really, yeah.
it's
That's
good. I
that's
mean, it's good
powerful.
for, it was powerful for me, but it's also, I feel like it's a little broy sometimes too. So that I'm always like, you gotta like, it's not totally broy, but it's like, I can see where people would think it's broy. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Does that make
Yeah, yeah,
sense?
yeah.
So
No,
it
no,
was,
well, now I'm curious.
yeah, you should. Yeah, it was passed to me by kind of like a bro, like a comedian, and I was like, oh, okay. But then I started reading, I was like, holy shit, this is really good. And then I got
Okay.
through the whole
Okay.
thing, and I was like, this changed me. Like for
Good.
better, for worse, it changed the way I approach everything.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
so it doesn't matter where you get it. As
Yeah,
long as you get it.
exactly.
That's it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Anyway, sorry, I
No,
tangent. I'm
please.
a
That's
tangenter.
awesome. This is, yeah.
It's supposed to be about you, of course. I just get guests on, talk about myself. It's a tenor thing.
Yes.
I should just call this tenor talk, where you listen to. I'm just basically inviting you to listen to me for an
Listen
hour.
to me, and what
Talk.
do you think about me?
We'll get into my passaggio soon, and then
Yeah,
we'll talk about the crafting of my F sharp very soon.
I can't wait.
It's a little domey. No. Anyway, I want to talk about you. How did you get into this?
Man, yeah, I mean, I think I was always interested in like, you mean comedy, how I got into comedy and like content creating?
Yeah, let's go. Let's start. Let's start like, first of all, like your passion for improv.
Yes.
Let's talk about that because I think that probably sets the table a little bit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think I was definitely doing comedy a long time before starting improv actually, and I think like due to a couple like on stage experiences I had when I was a lot younger, I was like, I don't think I'm good at improv. Like I remember like freezing up in a situation on stage where I had to kind of just go
Wing
off
it.
the cuff. This was in college, so it was a really long time ago. But I remember just like having that story, like, oh, I don't think that's my thing. But when I moved to LA in 2012, one of my best friends was studying the Groundlings, and then yeah, I eventually started there too, and was really surprised how much I just loved it. Like, just yeah, it was hard and a definite discipline, but just I would say like maybe 3 classes in, or even yeah, I'd say like 3 classes in, it was like I love this so
You're home.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're home. Like, what was a comedy before that? Just enjoying witty scripts and things like that, or bit?
Well, I actually when I started going from like classical singing to comedy, it was starting to make some videos, and I started making some comic music videos. So that was like a good sort of gateway for me. Like I was still singing, and I had started writing songs. So I was like writing comedic songs and then making these videos, and that would have been like 2008 or something. So
Oh,
yeah, that was like a long time ago, and
yeah.
that's after that, I had so much fun making those that I started making like a YouTube show that I called the Karen Morgan Show, and it was just like me teaching my audience how to do things they either didn't care to learn to do, or that they already knew to do, and that I certainly didn't know how to do. And I don't know, I just
That's
had
phenomenal.
it was
That's a
I
great
mean
premise.
thank you. It was so great because like that experience of transitioning to making this stuff was like the joy I felt in doing it was like so profound. It was like I just felt like I was like floating. Like I was so excited about it. I was so excited to edit it. I was so excited to share it like with my,
Yeah, with
a couple
one
hundred
person if
friends
they
on
watch it.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not long after I joined Facebook. So yeah, I think it's interesting because I think in terms of what we were talking about earlier, like I didn't have some of those blocks just because social media was like brand new back then. So it was maybe less determined like what's a normal thing to even put up on social media. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, the model had not been established. It was a Wild West. I mean, it was wide open, and YouTube
exactly.
was still kind of wide open. I mean, things like Mr. Beast and all that kind of nothing like that had really been established yet.
No, no, yeah, you exactly. You had people that were going viral, but it was like,
Yeah,
it was like
is the kid
weird.
from the kid from the dentist? Is this real life and all that? That.
Oh man, I don't know
Yeah,
that. What is
remember
that one? I don't think
you
I've
never.
seen
Oh
that
my
one.
god, there's this kid gets home. So this was like OG internet, like around that time. There's a kid. There's this video that is this mom filmed of her kid getting done from the dentist, like getting back from this really traumatic dental experience or whatever, and
Gosh.
he had just gone under the
And how old a
Novocaine.
kid are we talking?
I mean, he's probably like I want to say he's between probably 8 and 10, and
Okay.
he's just sitting there looking just stoned out of his mind, like he goes, is this real life, like
Oh,
that, and he's just staring into the ether, just like and then he'll just sit there and go like he does some crazy shit, and it's really funny, and it went viral. It's like those types
can't
of
believe I
videos.
missed that one.
I mean, the dog either there's one there's a lot, there were a lot, right? there's
I remember.
there's
Oh no, absolutely. Like I remember.
bronchitis, ain't
Charlie
nobody got
bit
time for
me.
that, and yeah, but yeah, he Charlie bit me, that one. There's
Yep.
that was the
Yeah.
yeah, but that was the Wild West, so nothing had been established. Yeah.
Exactly. And even just like the social aspect of like, hey, here's my Instagram. Like, well, Instagram didn't exist back then.
Not
I
yet.
don't
Yeah.
think. It's like this is my calling. This is my business card. Like
Yeah.
this is a representation of me. Just like that wasn't there in the way that it is now. And it's funny. I haven't thought about that. Like starting to create content now as opposed to then would be a different thing in terms of like people already see what you typically put out there and they've come to expect it. Whereas back then it's like, yeah, I didn't care so much about I didn't have to care about yeah, about that.
Well, yeah, when people, do start to follow, and I just I just noticed this, which I'm very thankful for because I started to get some following, at least on Instagram, getting some hits.
Awesome.
And yeah, I got like 12.9K now. So that's
Hell yeah, that's
from,
awesome, Todd.
I
I didn't
mean, well,
realize that.
well, it was from like nothing, like from like maybe 1,000 when I started, like 2 years
Yeah,
ago. So I'm chipping away at it. It's steady goes the race. I know it's
that, I
that
mean, yeah,
until something happens, until one thing, I've had some things blow up, and then that's what always generates more, things.
yes,
If one thing will hit viral and you're like, whoa, why did that?
totally.
You're like, why did that? And then you're like, don't question, just go
Yeah,
with it. And the minute you question, you're like, no, this is not about you. It's
I
about the
mean,
algorithm.
it is. It is one of the great mysteries.
Yeah, it really is. And then there's TikTok and all those others, which I can't really break into, but it's you just keep putting them up on all of them and throw them out
Exactly.
there and see what happens. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, what I was
That's
gonna say is yes. Sorry to interrupt.
no, please.
I'm getting us back on track. When people start to have an expectation because they're following you regularly, and the reason they're following you regularly is because of the content that you are producing and they are consuming,
Yes.
then there has to be sort of you kind of have to be your own program director in your head.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, but it's funny because it's like, well, what do you mean by that? Like in the sense of keeping maintaining the bar of what you post or the regularity or the like, yeah,
Well, what I mean is, as an example, back to me. No, as an example, like some stuff where like stuff that will hit on like that hit on my account. When I started doing comedy, I was sort of splaying, even though everyone knew I was a singer. I was saying, oh, what if I hit this? What if I hit that? What if I hit that? What if I hit some of the stuff I hit my stand up? Oh, I used to be Mormon. Let's make fun of that. And maybe not.
Oh, I
It's
didn't
like
know that.
yeah, I'm a foreman. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a lot. We could go into that.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
I've got plenty on that.
interested.
Yeah, we could flip the card on that for
I
sure.
grew up, yeah, in the
Well,
church
well,
as
let's
well.
talk about that. Yeah, we'll put a pin in that. We'll hit that
Put a pin
next.
in it.
But I was just gonna say they people started to latch on to the music part, and it's like you don't have I don't think have this issue because your stuff was very focused from the get go. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. With me, I knew I wanted to do comedy, but I didn't really know who was listening or who wanted to listen, and so I knew it wanted to be somewhat about singing and music and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But when the response was that, then it was like, well, once I flew out of that niche, this is my point. Once I flew out of that niche for a hot second, it was like, nope, we're good. We don't want that. We want
Interesting.
this. So it was very specific to that. That's what would hit was things that were based on singer life, singers stuff, singer shit gone wrong, singer haha, singer whatever, singer, or music. It was more into that niche, and that was because of the algorithm. Not so much because I can't tell a joke about
Yes.
other things, but it's like no one wants, you know what I'm saying? It's in a lane. So that's the
So are
difference.
you saying you felt like you needed to be the one to keep yourself there, or no, it's like I gotta fight the fact that this is what tends to be working and try the stuff I want to try?
I think it's a balance. I think you
Yeah.
have to it's like a video game. I
Yeah.
really do feel it like that because if I take it personally, like I take the feedback personally, if it's a compliment or something that's like wanting more generation of the product, right? Because it's like, okay, yes, I can absolutely put more content out there like that. But if it's but if yeah, if like there's something I specifically want to hit, I know I have to hit other subjects to get the views up in order to slip that in that it might possibly get traction. At least that's
Oh,
my philosophy on it because I feel like every time I go back to a meme, it like gets a bunch of hits. And then sometimes when I go to a sketch, it'll get a bunch of hits. But if it's off subject, sometimes it won't. But if I'm getting a lot of hits, I can go off subject and it'll get a few and then it will kind of like broaden the circle. I don't know if that's right, but
feel
it
like
feels like,
if you're having like a viral moment with your typical content, and if you put in a video that's unrelated to that, it tends to do better just because
yeah,
you're getting more views.
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's in a flow, I feel like it's in a like a traction zone where you're grabbing people on as you go, and then once they fall off that, it's like nope, we're done, and it's like okay, back to the old niche thing where I'm hitting that comedy thread
Yeah.
again.
I do think that's like a huge issue with creators and social media is like how much we allow the algorithm to dictate like
I do
what
too.
we do creatively.
You
It's
fight it in a good way, and I admire it. But you've also built up a good base.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, it's like I think for so long I just didn't get the followers, and that was so it was like, in a way, just did what I wanted because it didn't really matter. I got
Yeah.
about the same amount of views, which was primarily my friends and family. So that, in a way, probably was, yeah, it's interesting because like going back to like the early days of social media as opposed to now, like back then, an algorithm wasn't at all on my mind. I did want a lot of people to see it, but I didn't even understand on YouTube like what I don't even yeah, the algorithm had to have been if it existed back then, it had to have been completely different as opposed to now. Yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating, like the stuff that does well and the stuff that doesn't. But like now that I've been doing it long enough, like consistently, like I tend to think like, yeah, this character doesn't do as well. I guess people just don't like her, or but then other people have had like theories, like my Dottie Dooge character, like she's
I
a
love Dottie
Dodgers.
Dottie Dooge.
I
Dottie D, yeah, Dottie Dooge.
see.
Yeah.
That's an example. Like I love Dottie Dooge. I love doing Dottie Dooge. Dottie Dooge hardly ever does well.
I think, but you're smart. You put Dottie but see, this is my point. I think you're smart in putting Dottie into sketches with characters that do very well, like
Oh, thank you.
Brigitte, and like with the perfectionist, and it's like you'll throw them in a scene together, and then it will show the contrast of the characters, and I think that is the funny. I mean, that's
Yeah,
how you
thank
get
you.
Dottie Dooge to be brilliant and funny in a I mean, to me, that's a smart play.
Thank you.
And also very creative. I mean, you're like, okay, screw it. If they don't like just Dottie, then we're gonna throw them in the Three's Company house and see what happens, and see what's going on and do the wordplay. And Mr. Furley's gonna hear at the door, and it's gonna be great. It's like it's gonna be awesome. And
Exactly. And these
yeah,
people are gonna finally get on board with Dottie Dooge.
I think Dottie Dooge is very relatable. I mean, I think Dottie Dooge comes from Middle America and came over to root for the
Yes.
Dodgers. I think
Yes.
Dottie Dooge grew
She
up
knew
as
there was more somewhere.
she was an aunt of mine, I feel, and I'm not kidding. Dottie and I, yeah. She goes right for the pork rinds. I like Dottie.
Oh, that
She's
makes me happy.
I mean, I'm NorCal, so Dottie, even though she's a
Okay.
SoCal fan, she's NorCal at heart. She's right off. Yeah,
I
she
love
knows
it.
she knows what a tractor looks like. She knows.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
She knows. Yeah, she knows what boiled
Yep.
peanuts out of the gas station tastes like.
She does.
I do too, unfortunately. Anyway, that's a different story. But
Was
yeah.
where in North California?
Yuba City near Sacramento. So
Okay. Oh, cool. I don't know if I did know that.
I'm a North Valley boy. I'm a transplant. I grew up there. Very, very farmy, very conservative, very conservative, very different.
Gotcha.
I was born and raised Mormon, as I told you.
Yeah.
Really religious household, even though my dad was kind of a yeah, he was born in a trailer park, so he kind of like had a little Dottie Dooge, a little like
Nice.
little down home, and a little like swearing all the time. He was like a drinking, swearing, smoking Mormon. So like
Whoa.
it was just weird. Like, yeah, I have so much I could
Yeah,
offer. Yeah.
I have not heard of that, but of course that has to exist, you know?
Not pride. I don't think pridefully for him, but I think he was one of those kind of closet smoker things. So like, yeah, Dad, we all know, it's fine, but he definitely grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, if you want to use that term. But I definitely saw those tracks, and I'm like, yeah, I'll call him wrong. I don't want to be there really.
Uh-huh.
He would take me as a kid, be like, hey, this is where I grew up. I'm like, okay, I'm thankful. Thank you, Dad.
Like he
So
would take you there to like show you, or like
yeah.
this is where you you could go, or like, no, this is
No,
my mom and your grandparents.
yeah, this is where I grew up with your your grandfather you never knew and your grandma and small trailer with four boys. And and my grandmother was a school teacher and my grandfather was a metal gear winder guy. Like he worked on little I never knew him. He died of emphysema because of the dust, the metal dust and stuff that so it messed up his lungs, I guess. And he was also, I think he smoked out of the womb too. I think he was just like rolling with like a,
Yes, you
Marlboro Red
do.
out of because it was just, we're talking like way back when it was just the thing
Wow.
yeah. Anyway,
What
that's me.
happened
I don't
back
want to
then?
bore you with my
No.
childhood details,
No,
which I,
come on. It's fun to, yeah, get to, like you said, we haven't really hung out much, so it's
yeah.
fun to, yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of like one of the things I used to beat up on stage is just my Mormon upbringing. That was kind of like not a painful moment by any means, but just one that passed by and didn't want
Mm,
to stick with it
mm,
for just because of lifestyle reasons. I think it was not my choice to stay in that lifestyle, but
mm.
and I sort of fell away. I was kind of like just backed away from the mic with Mormonism. I didn't like make some grand proclamation like many people do, like I'm leaving the church, and it's none of that. It's just like I
Well,
just
I
be
mean, the fact that you, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you could do that kind of makes it seem like maybe, yeah, you weren't, it wasn't as legalistic maybe as it can be for some people.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it can feel very legalistic and very cult-like and very entrapping,
Mm,
for a lot of people. And I think because I was a singer, and because I was like I was talented as a singer, like that was just something that I could do, which I didn't understand that I had a talent to do that, as easily. I trained really hard to learn how to do this now professionally, which is that's the next step. But the natural talent was there, and
mm,
I think that helped me kind of get out, if that makes sense, because I kept using that because I kind of knew I was like, I don't think I'm cut out for Mormonism, but
mm.
I used the I kind of used the excuse of singing to kind of get out because I was like, well, I'm gonna need to go and train and perform all the time, and I can't do a mission for 2 years if I need to like stick with my voice and do all these things. It's so important to me, and it was. But
Yeah.
also I knew I probably wanted to have some alcohol and
I'm gonna
might want to
probably end
smoke
up
some
wanting to have
weed
some alcohol.
and may want to have sex before marriage. So it's kind of like all these things are like, check, okay, that's not gonna hold up. Yeah,
I still find that impressive because, like, because I grew up in evangelical.
talk to me about that
I mean,
if you want to.
yeah, no, I mean, totally. It was just in terms of the stuff you just said. I mean, alcohol wasn't so much. I mean, I didn't drink until I was 21, but that wasn't so much a sticking point, which obviously I know it is with Mormonism. But yeah, like sex before marriage and all of that was like, no, you don't do that. You definitely don't. And um, I didn't feel like there was an option to not do that. So I just find that impressive that you felt like you could be like, no thanks at an early age.
I wouldn't say it was. I mean, early now because it was like probably around 19 or 18 or 19
Yeah.
that I kind of like pieced out. I was an adult. I think it took me like getting out of the house and going to like school,
Yeah.
to
But it's
kind of
still
just be
like,
away. Yeah.
for me, it's probably, I was more like 30 maybe. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it really,
It fucked with you a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, it took a long time to feel free, and I'm still working on it. Feel free of some of those things that you have to do in order to be right, to just feel like a,
Wonder if it
yeah.
ever, I wonder if it ever totally like leaves us. For me, I think there's always going to be a little something, in there. Like it's like your parents or like for me, both my parents passed, but like my dad,
Mm,
like I could never quite, he'd always have a critical thing to say after I just like scream my lungs out, like, well, that, and I'm like, what the fuck, Dad, but like,
when you're singing, or no, like
yeah, anything.
he would be
Yeah.
critical of that.
I mean, he'd be bawling and so proud at the same time. He'd have a critique. It's just the flip side of it, and it's
Yes.
that sort of like it's like I don't know if I'll ever quite get over all the little things, and religion does that too for me.
Yes.
If there's a little
Yes.
like, your heavenly Father's not pleased with you, or you're like, what? Why is that happening? Like,
Oh, it's so
yeah,
profound.
it's very profound.
It's crazy how deep that goes.
Well, I mean, music, right? Like, music starts in the church. Music's
Mhm.
such a part of both of our lives. You were a professional singer. You've done all the training. You've
Yeah.
jumped through all the hoops. So how many times do you say God, even in a non-godly thing? You're
100.
praying.
That's yeah. Yeah.
It's all
Totally.
channeled to something bigger than yourself,
Yes.
and you're ultimately making sounds that are bigger than yourself because it's something you can't express in any word. It's just a vibe. It's just a feeling. It's just a chord. It's just a note. It's just something played that makes for whatever reason, makes these stand up
Mm,
on and you're like, what the, like, and so that is a spiritual experience in itself. So it's hard to break the,
totally.
like to cut the whatever.
Totally. Totally. And I think that's a really good point. Like I think the singing, some of the singing I've done, and especially like choral singing, has had a spiritual dimension that I've not like encountered anywhere else. But so much of my spiritual upbringing, it wasn't entirely that. I had a really devout parents that were really beautiful, loving people. So it's not like it was all negative, but the
Yeah.
the church side of it is it's so much like about rules and like
Controlling.
believing
Yeah.
this, like this is you believe this and things being so ordered and lined up that an experience like what you were describing that like is so much less tethered to those sorts of specifics is so different and so profound. Yeah, like and yet still sometimes if it's sacred music, it's yeah, really very connected to the religion. So it's a I think in a lot of ways sacred music has been like a, especially maybe in my these was like a new sort of portal for my spirituality.
Yeah. Me too. Me
Hmm.
too. Same deal. I recently started doing a lot of meditating.
Cool.
A lot of meditating,
Wow.
and it's changed my life. And it's only been a few weeks,
That's
and it
awesome. It's been a
yeah
few weeks. Wow.
yeah it's been a few weeks, and it's literally rewired a lot of things for me, which is just I'm still kind of trying to figure out why that is.
Being
But it's wonderful. And but something that kind of occurred to me during that was that because you do kind of tap into a something bigger sometimes when it's going well,
yeah.
and you're kind of like, you're almost thankful for that, while you're not thankful for any traumatic experience or anything that tethers you spiritually to a specific belief or anything. You are thankful for the structure sometimes in which that things are ordered in a way that allows you to adhere to a practice that helps you focus inward
Mm, mm.
and kind of push the outward away. So
Yes.
I can say that there are like the relationships between those two things I can appreciate without having to go back there, but then
Mm,
also be more, as opposed to being more about it, I'm a little more thankful about the process. I'm like, oh, I understand the process. I understand where you're trying to get to. This does this for me, but I'm thankful that somebody tried. I have to be more thankful as opposed to be like, how dare you? It's like, come on, everyone's trying to do the right thing. I think for the most part. I
totally.
try and keep that in my mind instead of
Totally.
especially in today's world. I try not to get angry, because I feel like it's an easy slippery slope right now, especially finger pointing and stuff.
Mm, mm.
I make music. I want everybody to be able to appreciate it. Not that even people that I don't agree with politically, I want you to still love a good song or love a good
Yes.
joke or like smile
Yes.
and laugh and understand that we all inhabit joy and love, and that we
Yes.
should kind of,
A
lean in.
100%. 100%. And if we can like just sort of in what we do tap people, kind of reorient back to joy and laughter.
I mean, it's hard to punch up sometimes, for me, it's hard to punch up. I
Mm.
mean, instead of punch down, it's hard, but especially,
You mean in your comedy?
yeah, I have bits and like I often will do like sketch bit. I'm big on the sketch bits like you are, I think, but yours are so much more layered, and you have so much experience doing professional character work, with ground legs
Thank
and
you.
short form and stuff. So you really are able to dial in these characters so well. I'm absolutely blown away. But I was going to say, sometimes when I'm making a sketch, that's exactly when I come up with a bit. I'm like, sometimes it'll be mean at first because I'll think about something else, and I'm like, well, how does that relate to you as a singer? When did you do that? And the minute I start to look in the mirror and make fun of myself, it's a punch.
Yes.
It's a punch up, and then it also then is a realization of why did that person or why did that thing occur out in the world elsewhere that you saw in a negative light? How do you flip that in your mind? So in some ways it forces you to be creative in a very positive way coming from a negative lens.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I personally just think my default, like what I think is funny is making fun of myself. You know what I mean? So it's like
Same.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of that's where like I'm kind of constantly mining my material, like I don't do many impressions, and I'm not great. I mean, I try to keep in touch with what's going on in the world in a general way, but I'm not too oriented towards that. I am more,
Yeah.
you could say this is, narcissistic, but I am more oriented towards like kind of making fun of myself and
Well, you know yourself better than anyone else, so it feels like you're
yeah.
I mean, I think we're the authorities on punching up on ourselves.
Yes, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Better
so
us than
sorry.
somebody else. No, it's okay.
That's potential spam.
Hey, I get it all the time. Talk to me a little bit more about your characters and how you've developed these. What's the purpose behind these? I feel like there's more to it than what meets the eye.
Well, yeah, thank you. So the ones that like I'm doing mostly now, let's say the perfectionist, the ones that are like kind of clearly aspects of like my personality, like the perfectionist inner child, the ego, who else? Those guys like those I have like I can kind of trace them back pretty specifically to a time when I was doing therapy. This would have been like 2020. I started working with a therapist who, and this was before I have been diagnosed with OCD, but this was before that. It was like kind of just before that. And she just was like, and talking with me. I think honestly, she was trained in internal family systems. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. She didn't, I don't know that she ever used those words, or if she did, I just didn't catch them, but I didn't know that's what she was doing, but she's like, yeah, you should name some of these people that are coming up in the sessions. I mean, at that point, like I remember one of them was like a religious, like a nun type. Like that's at least what she wanted to name it. She wanted to name it some like kind of nun. And she's like, you should do some like videos. I know you do comedy. You should you bring it. I was just like, no, like that doesn't sound funny at all. Like, no, thank you. But I did get an idea once, and I think the first one was like kind of an ego character. Once I started doing those, like I was like, oh, I see how this is funny. If it's me talking to this aspect of myself, and I started doing a bunch of those, and the perfectionist was the first one that took off. That was really my first viral video ever. Um, and so that's, kind of talking about what we were saying earlier, where it's like you get a response to something, and like at that time I was like, okay, I'll make a lot more of these. Like that's and I had one, it's like I had like one other video kind of go viral, but it was a kind of more random one that I tried to kind of do that advice with and like make more of them, and it's like that didn't work. But this one, it's like I could make a billion of these episodes of Perfectionist, like that is just the most real thing I struggle with. And it also coincided, like I think maybe a month after that video went viral is when I was diagnosed with OCD. So it's like it really was very close to what was going on internally. and then
It's
that,
like the perfect storm. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that fed the fact that it kind of took off. So then I just kind of like started expanding it to characters that were a little more universal than like one of the early ones I had done was I called her Anxious Mary Poppins, like just this, anxious character.
I think I remember
Right.
that character. Yeah, I think I
You
do.
do?
Yeah, vaguely, like from like around pandemic times, maybe, or like
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. No, it was very much so. Yes. So then I kind of tried to do more, slightly more universal ones, like the perfectionist, the inner child, the ego, the diva, the I don't know why I'm blanking on other ones like that.
Well, I mean, I think though there. I mean, just to skip. I mean, just to cut to the chase. It's all a reflection of your own like different quadrants of your own ego that are just like that you're just unlocking, onto the world. Kind of. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. And I think, oh my gosh,
I
I'm
love that
so
ring.
sorry.
No,
Can
don't
I
worry
turn
about it.
off the sound? I know what I
You're
have to do.
good. It's on the computer because
That's
yeah,
the problem.
it's
Very
fine. It does it
sorry.
on mine too, so it might do it.
Okay. Yeah, like the idea that like, with OCD, it causes a lot of anxiety, like a lot of discomfort and distress, like some of these voices, and the perfectionist being one of them. And the idea that if you can see them and you can kind of humanize them, that they're actually trying to help you, and they can be funny. They're not just like terrifying.
Yeah,
Perfectionism for me, like, and knowing that it's OCD helped a lot too, but like the anxiety of like needing to make sure I like did my taxes absolutely perfectly right was so overwhelming that I just like hated doing my taxes. Everyone hates doing their taxes, but like being able to see that part of you and like realize that they're trying to help you, and they're also kind of funny. It somehow helps you to accept them and also not have them have as much power over you.
I totally agree. I read a book one time called The Tools, the Phil Stutz book. He had to put out it's interesting. He talks about in there, he's a therapist, and he talks about like different characters in your mind and about shadows and shadow characters and things like that, and how
Yes.
how you need those characters in order to go enact to be your best. You actually need to embrace some of those characters and understand who they are, and that they can actually help you get to your destination goal. And I think a lot
Exactly.
of what you're saying kind of speaks to this.
Exactly. No, 100%. Like that's exactly it. Like, and I have benefited from them immensely. I think as much as they've maybe caused distress, they've also, like you said, helped me. Like, perfectionism is a big part of why I think some of the stuff I do is of a high quality. But it's like finding balance and not letting some of these aspects like take over, and to the point where you're just not happy.
Stifled. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
stifled. Yeah, I totally get that. I think it's a brilliant. I think it's also helps others, like other creators. I think it's helped me. It's helped others show that.
Thank you. That makes me so happy.
Well, truly, like if you can make fun of yourself,
Mm.
I noticed the minute I started to make fun of myself, it became kind of a better singer all of a sudden, and I started to sing better, and I started to and I started to get more gigs and all this weird shit. And it wasn't because I was putting out comedy necessarily, but it was because I didn't give a shit. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm done, and it's like
that's
I'm done giving a
cool.
shit. Like I don't care anymore. It's like that's kind of how I feel about it, and it's like now y'all know who I am. Now you know
Yeah,
me past Cotto Meal Ben. So this is me. If you want to hire this, fine. If you don't, it's okay.
it's
I'm good. I'm
okay.
51 years old. What you want to cry? I'm good.
Yeah,
Like I'll find a gig. It's like it's cool.
exactly.
Like, are you making your living as a comedian now? Like, is that how you're
Yeah,
rolling? That's
yeah.
amazing. First of all, I have to.
Thank you so
My
much.
God, like, wow.
It's the dream of my life,
Yep,
you
me
know.
too. That's amazing. I'm excited for you. That's
Dude,
amazing.
you'll get there. I mean, you're making your living from your performing, which is so incredibly cool. It's
I'm
like,
very
yeah.
grateful to get to it. Yeah, that does not mean to say that I'm not grateful for what I do, but part of me, yeah, we'll get to
No,
that.
listen, I
Part of me,
100%.
yeah, part of me feels like I made I made the right turn when I should have made the right veer. Does that make sense? On the diagonal,
You
I
should
went a
have made
hard.
the right veer, you said?
Yeah, I should have done the right veer to the right, but I did a hard 90 and just kept going. It's like, well, maybe you should have just,
In a
just
sense of
level it up that way.
like done more singing and comedy at the same time, or no? Like,
Absolutely. I just
uh-huh.
why throw that skill set to the side completely and not work on it?
Well, and
Yeah,
that's what you're
like
doing though, right?
yeah. It's but the inner child or whatever wants to
Yeah.
look backwards and
Yes.
chastise Todd
Yes.
of 35 or 30 years old. Why didn't you do that? It's like,
Mm,
well,
mm,
you are where you are. But anyway,
exactly.
yes, that's the looking back lens.
Yes.
Do you have like a, not to pivot so quick, but do you have like a favorite moment on stage that you'd like to talk about that you ever had? Like something that was just something that happened that was just amazing. It could be singing, could be comedy, could be both.
Okay. Let me think. That's definitely a yes. Try to think. I probably what I would say is one the first. Well, okay. I have one experience that I thought for a long time was one of the highlights of my life, and it was earlier on. It was in college. In college I was a voice major, but they had at my school a talent show that was like a once a year thing that the whole school came to, and you had to audition for it. I mean, it sounds so basic, but it was like a big event at this school. I had I had done an act my sophomore year. My junior actually hosted it with my best friend, and that was absolutely thrilling. My senior year, this friend was out of the country, and so I just was like, oh, okay, I'll put an act together, and wrote this opera sitcom. It was, now I'll call it an opera sitcom. And I've done that a bunch since then, but this was like the first iteration of it. And basically what I did was just like take some excerpts of actual, like I was working on Adieu notre petite
Yeah,
table,
the
from,
tableau. Yeah.
yes. And
Manon.
so
Yeah.
made up recitative before that, and it was like so it was set at my college's library. I mean, we made a set,
Yeah.
and but I made like a crazy Wagnerian like armor outfit out of tinfoil and cardboard. But so it was like
Amazing.
about wanting, in my school, I went to a Christian school where they didn't have dances, and it was the February
Footloose.
formal.
Yeah.
And so I wanted this guy to ask me the February formal. So I'm like singing in French very dramatically about like a very banal situation that was very
Yeah.
contemporary. And and I had one of my close friends was the love interest, and then another fellow well, all three of us were in the conservatory. My friend Jacob Banks was like the conductor, but he was on the piano, but he like was conducting himself on the piano. And anyway, it brought the house down, and it was probably one of the bigger audiences. I think it was like it was like 4,000 people were there,
Damn.
and
And it
like,
killed it 4,000. That's amazing.
yes, I mean, of course, it was like tailored for these people. I mean, we had subtitles too projected.
Yeah,
and
but still, like that's amazing.
it was one of the most thrilling experiences I've ever had, and I remember like in the years after that just being like, I don't think I would say now I don't have those sort of I mean, I still have the nostalgia for it, of course, but it's like I don't think anything had topped it for a really long time. Nothing topped that experience.
Do you think that like planted a seed, like in a way, like that's if you got that from creating your own comedy and your own hybrid performance like that? I mean, if you got that much elation from one performance like that, didn't it? I mean, didn't it sort of validate the creative
Yes.
bug inside a little bit?
Yes, I for sure. And I think like, yes, when you asked earlier like how long, I think you said how long or how did I get started in it? Like really it feels like it might have started kind of officially then. And at the time it's like, well, I'm a senior in in college as a voice major, I'm going to do classical singing.
You're
Of
on your
course,
track, yeah.
yes,
You're in
that's
the
like
hole in the
a serious thing I'm going to do. That's what you do with your life. You don't do this with
That's
your
it.
life.
That see,
But
this is it though. You don't do this. You don't. It's
yeah,
very silken scarf. You do not do this. You shan't do this. You cannot do that. It's very
yeah.
much that.
I mean,
When you're in that, I'm sorry to like interrupt,
no,
but like that's
please.
so much what the hell our degree was
Yeah,
from about 1990 all the way up to when you like hung it up. Like said, I'm doing
right.
comedy, screw this. And same kind of like, but that's one of the reasons I think it breaks you out. It's very much like a religion, if you
Yeah,
will, where it's like, I appreciate the structure of this. However,
totally. And it's funny, even thinking about what we were saying earlier about like being able to say like, you know what, I want to be able to, have sex before I'm married, or I want to
yeah,
be able to
drink or whatever it is.
drink or
Yeah.
whatever. It's like
Yeah.
for me, I wasn't even able to like offer myself that possibility. And in a similar way, I don't think I really ever considered that you could make your living doing that. Like it just wasn't something.
Same.
It was not a consideration.
No, and it's not even a box that people are willing to like crawl out of and look outside. Even I feel
No, I
like
mean, well, and of course, if someone were to at that age, what you'd say or what someone would say is like, well, okay, great, but how would you do that? How
yeah.
would you
How do you
make
even
money
do
doing that? Because
right?
it's hard enough to make money as an opera singer.
It is hard, very difficult. Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
Very
It's like
hard.
I know, like for me, especially living in SoCal, I have to take. I have a joke where I'm like, we're blue collar. I say, pardon the expression. I say we're broke ass blue collar bitches. Is what I say on stage, and I pause, and it always gets a laugh, but it's true. I mean, like, and I say, like, I follow it up with like, we take any gig we can. I say
Yes.
half the money we spend on the suits that we have to wear in order to hang with the crowd that we're singing for that may
Yep.
or may not be listening. The other
Yep.
half we basically spend on the 405, smoking a joint, getting Del Taco. It's like,
My
and it,
gosh.
it works. The bit works because it's true. Like I can't
Wait.
tell you. I
So
can.
this is part of your stand-up for
This
the?
is okay. So you want to hear the bit? I'll do the bit.
Yes,
So
I
I'll
already am in
say,
love with
here's the
it.
bit. Here's my. Well, I'm really taking your time here, but
Yeah,
this
come
I'm
on,
going to tell
I
you the
hear
bit
it.
anyway. So the bit is like I say, I said, I was like, oh, you think I got into opera for the money, right? I was like, fuck no. I say that, and I'm like, what do you think? This is like 1833 Strasbourg? Ah, yeah, guten Tag. I am Todd. I buy beer for everyone. Rich opera singer. I'm like, no. This is LA. Is 2025. We're some broke ass blue collar bitches, man. We take any gig we can. Half the money we spend on wearing suits and pocket squares and all that kind of bullshit just so we can hang with the elitist crowd that doesn't fucking listen to us anyway. And I pause, and I hold a big pause, and I think the other half we spend on the 405 smoking a joint, waiting for our Del Taco on the drive-through. And that usually segues into a pot joke that I talk about where I'd taken too much, and the next day I had a gig and forgot the lyrics, so I embellish it a bit where I I make up sexual lyrics
Oh
to
my
see if they're
gosh.
to see if they're listening, and then I stop, and then I'm like, they didn't notice, and then it's a big, so it's a fun bit, but it's really true, like,
I mean, 100%.
as a hustler, as a artist in town, you do kind of have to work all the time, as a singer, because there's so much there's no passive income except for if you're in, like, I'm lucky enough to get to do session work when I'm called.
Gosh, yeah, that's the dream. Oh,
But
that's
that's
awesome.
it.
I'm
That's
so
the
glad
only
you're doing
time.
that.
Yeah, that's the only. But even still, I'm just going to be really honest. Like, even still, as a professional, I don't. There's no having it made. It's like you're always chomping at the bit. There's never stops. And remember, my first teacher was like, "It never stops, my dear. It never stops." She was right. It never stops.
I
The
mean,
hustle never stops.
your story, yeah, I think one of the craziest gigs. I mean, of course, we've all done the caroling, right? The
Yeah.
caroling gigs.
I gave that up. Yeah.
Okay, well,
But yeah.
well,
But
I
I've
did
been
too.
there. I've been there so many years. Yeah.
But for those of you who don't know, that's one of the gigs Todd is explaining about taking any gig. It's for the holiday season, you are at the beck and call of any possible gig you can do in full Victorian uh garb, like,
Garb.
the
Yeah.
huge skirts. And one time when I first did this, I think actually both, I only did it 2 seasons because it definitely took a toll on me.
It breaks you. Yeah, it absolutely breaks you. Yeah. Breaks you.
I had a gig. I think this was Paris Hilton's dad's house. So up like on Mulholland or
Up the
something,
hill. Yeah.
up the hill. I didn't have a car at the time. I had a
God.
scooter.
Shit.
And I
Oh
was
my
told.
God. Were you in costume on the scooter?
Yes,
Thank
I
God.
was,
Yes.
because we were told. I remember the place I did caroling with. They did a lot of stuff at the like Tam O'Shanter and the what's the place out near the Grove, another rib, or not rib, but gosh, where they cut the meat off and they bring
Yeah,
the.
yeah, 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 yeah. Like not I know what you're talking about. It's
Okay.
like a steakhouse, right? Like a really
Yes, yeah.
Mastro's type place.
And
Yeah.
a place like that had a room where you could change
Yeah.
your into your costume. But this place up in Paris Hilton's dad's house, we were told we weren't allowed to use the bathroom.
To do anything. Yeah. You just had to show up, do
So
your shit and get out. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And so I rode up into the Hollywood Hills on my scooter with
God, that
like
must have
this
been
huge skirt just stuffed into the front of it.
I wish I had a drone shot of that.
Oh, I know. So I do somewhere. Someone took a picture of that, and
I
I do
hope
have a picture
so.
of that somewhere.
That's
It's
amazing.
like that Victorian outfit, but with my huge scooter helmet on.
Yes. Did you
I
have I hope
mean,
you were wearing sunglasses too, or like some sort of goggle
absolutely.
situation. Yeah. Just to protect from the bugs, but just the look, you know. That's a character in itself. You could create a character off of that. Like you
Absolutely.
should just go full
With a
ham
huge
on
like
that. Yeah.
alien head on a Victorian
Oh, that's so good.
lady.
Oh, that's so good.
Ugh.
Have you had any like gigs like did you have like a major I'm not going to ask if, I'm sure, because I
Yeah.
have fuck ups
Yes.
every day. Talk to me about like an epic thing that happened. It's probably going to be funny, I'm assuming. So like offer a funny story on stage where things went all wrong and how'd you get out of it and what happened? How did it end up?
Yeah, okay. I mean, obviously there's so many of these. I mean, okay. One of my favorite, I feel like I have two
Great. I love
that are
to.
very different. So one from like Groundling stage, one of my favorite things, if it's not a scene that I've written,
Right.
it's my favorite thing. If it's a scene that I've written, then it's my very least favorite thing. But is to be on stage when there's a late blackout. Meaning like
Where they don't
somebody
edit. Nobody edits.
it's for no, it's like, so this is for sketch,
So I
okay?
only know long form because I've done UCB, but I don't know how much different this is. But
Okay, well this
talk
so
me through
this
it.
actually
Yeah.
isn't improv. This is sketch. So this
Oh,
is like
sketch.
a
Okay, great.
sketch that you've written that has a very like
Scripted sketch, like
exactly.
SNL
So it's
style.
like
Yeah.
very important that the lights go out at the right
At the curtain
time.
call. Yeah, at the bam, at the button, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes that doesn't happen for, Murphy's
Can I
Law,
ask
of course.
can I ask a question? So a lot of times
Yes.
these blackouts are actual comedic beats. So the blackout is dependent upon the timing of that blackout is dependent upon your biggest laugh, possibly at the end of a sketch that will close the whole thing out. Am I right?
Exactly.
Great.
That's
Okay.
how it is supposed to work. That is how we're always trying to write blackouts so that it's like the high point of the sketch and the lights are going out and people are like, "Oh my gosh,"
Right. Yeah.
or just laughing their butts off.
Right.
Right, but if you don't time that blackout, it's just like that is my favorite thing to witness. Again, not to have my sketch destroyed. That I don't enjoy, but like I think one of my favorite. So I've had it happen to me, and I've also just been on stage when it's happened, and I've also watched it from the audience happen. And I think the funniest thing about it is that if the blackout is late, if it's early, I've had it be early. One time I got a blackout like halfway through the sketch because what happens is the person on the lights is all they have is the blackout line. So they're like waiting to hear that line, and then they cut it out. But if
They
you
don't have a
have
full
that
script. They
line,
just have that cue, and that's it.
exactly, typically
Okay.
because they've just got so many sketches that they don't
Yeah.
follow along the whole thing.
Sure.
They just have the blackout line, and then they know. So this one time, I said that line, didn't realize it earlier in the sketch, like halfway through the sketch. So blackout, halfway through the sketch, haven't even gotten to the main thing. It's just suddenly over, like, which sucks. But
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's just confusing and sad. But when it's late, it is the funniest thing because as an actor, it's funny from every perspective. As an actor up there, you're like, the lights are out, and you're like, you suddenly have to just keep going. Of course,
You're just,
there's
yeah,
no.
you're riffing.
We're trained to improvise, but it's like there's no saving a moment like that was supposed to be so climactic, and now we're just gonna add on to it.
Well, it's hard too because you're not in that lane, to begin with.
Right, exactly. It's not a thing. And I, like one of the funniest things that ever to me was, I think, like, I was just in this one. I had a small part in this one, so I was able to just fully enjoy it. But two women were like assaulting their boss with tea bags. They were just really annoyed at the boss, and they just
And that was the weapon
like,
of choice. Was a tea bag? Was a Lipton tea bag? Yeah.
like, I think it ramped up to them like swinging a tea bag around their head, and then
Like David, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
David
and
and Goliath, yeah.
Exactly. I don't know that it actually like hit him in the face, but they're just like leveraging these tea bags as weapons against their boss, who didn't want them to spend all the money on these like social events in the office. And the blackout didn't happen. They just got their tea bags, and we're all just like, and then one, oh gosh, what happened? One of them was like, listen, I'm telling you, you gotta, it's really, knock
mean
it
it.
off.
I really mean
and
it.
It's like, you better not be using that money for the dry cleaning bill on that for this tea bag. And then it's like blackout.
And that was
That's the blackout. And the funniest thing to me, I'm not remembering the words exactly how, this was like a couple years ago, but the funniest thing to me is like from the audience, because I've been in the audience when this happens. Even with all the experience I have now in sketch, you don't necessarily know that's what went wrong. All you know is that that's how they wanted to end the sketch.
Right. You're blaming the writing immediately. Like, wait, so they spent all this time writing this and that's the button?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Somehow that's how it reads. And I can't even tell you how much it delights me, but then it's so humiliating if it's you, like,
Yeah.
stuck in that moment.
At the same moment, it's also, I think, because it's comedy and because it's imperfect, it doesn't, and because there are so many sketches that to be written and written and written and written.
Yes.
I think it's like, as soon as it's done, it's done.
Yes.
And you're ready to do the next one, just like improv. And everyone's got I'm assuming with sketch, everyone's got everyone's back very similarly.
Absolutely.
So there's a fun with it that
totally. I mean, it's fun in the dressing room too. Like if you come running back after any sketch is over and you run back to the dressing room, there's like this energy that is very hard to describe from the people that are leaving. But if something like that has just happened, it's just like people, you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what just happened. But at the same time, you're changing for the next thing,
And you can't, if you focus on that, then it's just like with an aria or anything else, you've got to be in the moment and keep going. How is that?
Yes.
How hard is that when something like that happens for you?
It gets easier. It does get easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
I think it's just like anything else, but
yeah.
It's never, for you, it's not something that has ever like made you want to stop, right? It almost makes you want to keep going in a way, or I don't know.
No, totally. I mean, the time it blacked out halfway through that, I remember that was such a bummer because that was the first time we put that sketch up, and how it fell in this was during Sunday Company. How it fell in the 6-month season of Sunday Company was that we never got to do it again because like then we had previews for our closing show coming up. So we just never got to really do the sketch because half of it didn't happen, and that's
Is there
bummer.
pressure? Is there like a lot of pressure with Sunday Company because it's so hard to get to that level and to be, like kind of, I mean, you're pro at that point. I mean, so is there that, like, if something fucks up, is there kind of like that, or I mean,
It Yes, I would say it's funny because you'd think like, well, six months minimum that you get. It could be. I mean, I did 18 months total.
amazing. Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you so
That's a big
much.
that's a big accomplishment. I know that's very difficult to be a part of.
Thank you
And
so much. It
I know
was
that's very
one of the
difficult.
greatest honors of my
Yeah.
life,
It's huge.
truly.
Humongous.
Uh, but yeah, you'd think like with 6 months, the pressure would be off, and I think in a way it is. But I think the way at least I've internalized it was like you're being judged. You never know who's going to be at any show. The idea of having a sketch, I mean, way worse than what I'm describing with the blackouts is just having a sketch bomb, and that I
Oh,
have
sure.
had.
Yeah.
I probably
Yeah.
should have just led with one of those stories where it's like a sketch just they're not laughing at it, and you
Pump.
got 4, 5, 3.5 minutes to sit in that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's yeah, I don't know. I felt a level of pressure at I think every show for those 18 months.
Yeah.
And
But
also
it's
just in the writing process, like, trying to top yourself, just constantly trying to top yourself.
What's your writing process? How do you when you write your sketches, things like that? How do you write every day?
During Sunday, the way it would work, it because we had such a specific schedule. Like we pitched on Wednesdays, rewrites Thursdays, Fridays. The show went up Sundays. So then we'd have Mondays and Tuesdays, and like Wednesday during the day to write. So then it would be basically every Monday, Tuesday, potentially Wednesday morning. You're writing with scene partners.
Similar to like Saturday Night Live scheduling,
Yes,
almost
yeah. I
very
mean, I
very
think
similar schedule framework. Yeah,
definitely a training, the perfect sort of training. I think for what. I mean, I think
that is. Yeah.
yeah, at least, yeah, it's intense. Obviously, it's SNL too. Way,
Well, yeah.
way,
I
way
mean,
intense.
but I think this is sort of a light beer, not necessarily light beer version. Not to say that it's less, but I think that the pressure of what you're doing
Exactly.
clearly.
Yeah.
If you're
National
on SNL,
television.
there's a little bit of pressure
Man.
for a national audience. But I'm really, have
Obviously,
you
yeah,
seen the
yeah,
doc yet? I'm really interested in seeing the doc.
No, I will.
Everyone's talking to me about this doc because I'm in comedy. They're like, "Have you seen the doc?" I'm like, "No." It's like are you kidding? It's like my dream to be on that show. Like everybody's, right? Like to be part of that
Yeah,
show.
I mean, I think, yeah.
I mean,
so.
that's just
Most everybody.
anybody that does comedy or sketch work or
Yeah,
likes
yeah.
jumping into characters. I think that's or zany people like you and I.
Yes. I mean,
Anything
yeah.
for a laugh type people.
Highest level.
I mean, it's the Olympics of
Yes.
that. It's incredible. Yeah. You have any favorite years of that show? What's your favorite era?
Man, good question.
I have many, I think, but I'm old, so
Yeah.
like the OG cast was so good.
Man, totally. I mean, yeah, I love. I mean, Kate McKinnon was like
She's
a
brilliant.
total treasure.
I don't know if you'll ever get anybody that's got as much in the tank as she does.
Just pure magic, just like
Yep. The characters.
absolutely incredible. I mean, of course, Kristen Wiig too is just like a huge,
Yeah.
huge inspiration.
I was big into the 90s with Dana Carvey and Mike Myers when
Absolutely.
it was in the, but then I think that had a limit to the comedy of the era a little bit.
Yes, I think it went through a period there where there just, weren't enough women in the cast, but
Totally not enough
Yeah.
women in the cast. And also just it seemed a little ego-y after a while. Got more ego-y. But that when it first started, I was like, oh, you guys are on to something. And then I also love the era with, Will Ferrell and the crossover with Kristen. All that was just, that to me was that was gold. And yeah, I
do love
could
Phil Hartman is maybe one of my favorites ever.
I love talking about him because I feel like we lost him so early, and he was such a genius, and I don't think the reality of his genius got unleashed. I mean, he was so funny. Phil Hartman was such a treasure. Wow.
Everything
I go back
he
and
did.
Yeah, everything he did. Everything he did was. I did go back to that the colon blow commercial.
Oh yeah.
That one got me. I don't know.
I remember that.
So stupid, but so funny.
My goodness.
And some of the movies that he was in too, just brilliant. Like he was a comedic genius. He was
Oh my
amazing.
gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's too bad.
incredibly inspiring to me.
Sandler was also inspiring to me back in the day, just because he
Nice.
mixed so much music and comedy. It was so
Totally.
silly. I also like that he kind of flips the bird to people, in his own way, where it's like people are saying, "This is stupid. This is that. This is." He just keeps doing his thing,
Yes.
and he hires his friends, and he doesn't. And it, I don't know. I don't mind it. I think it's actually kind of brilliant, and I have a huge amount of respect for that guy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the
It's not
perks.
always my brand of humor, but I honor his like he like sticks with it, and I'm like I honor that a lot. Yeah, very similar
Totally.
to like what you've been able to put out exactly what you want to put out, and I that's
No.
one thing I'm still trying to find my way comedically, but and I think it'll settle at some point, but yeah,
Absolutely.
you
It just takes like it's like a constant exploration, like uh, yeah, like I 100%. And
do you could I ask you a couple more questions before we get out of here?
yeah, totally.
You got to
I'm
bail
getting
soon,
my
right?
haircut at 1.
Snap. Okay, yeah,
So,
I'm gonna ask you one more question.
okay, sweet.
Why do you perform?
I mean, it's the joy of it. It's a joy unlike anything else.
Yeah, me too. For me too.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's just I recognized. I think it's like all these options to teach more, and I love teaching. I teach at a couple colleges and do things, but
Awesome.
I do things, I just but I'm so passionate about comedy and want this badly, and I think part of me realized very much like you. I love it so much. I know that I'm a bit of an addict to performing because of the joy that it gives me. It doesn't necessarily
Yes.
matter that it's not opera, but I know I need to perform. And there's something about performing your own stuff. Am I right? That's
I mean,
very validating.
that's 100% it. Like I love singing and I love getting to perform like an opera or something. But yeah, like performing something you've created, there's a magic to it that I've never found matched any other way.
What advice can you give some creators out there and people that want to do this? And we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I think just what I've always found is being it's a good segue to what you just asked. Like I follow like what feels joyful to me, what is funny to me, and I think just giving yourself a space to play um that doesn't feel it feels as unjudged as possible, but where you're also like getting people to see it. Like for me, this was again like 5 years ago, so the landscape was different, but stories were new on Instagram, and I felt comfortable just like goofing around in a story because it would go out there and then disappear. And so that's how I really started playing with my characters. I was because to me that felt safe. It didn't, putting posting things felt less safe, but just putting something up in a story, I felt like I could always just do that, and it didn't really matter. So not that has to be the venue, but like just kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation, it's like how can you be creating in a way that you don't feel like you're under the eye of people, and just do what cracks you up, do what you find funny, follow that. And even if people, because again, like I made stuff for I think like 12 years before I started to get recognition beyond just like my family and friends. And I always, even though I wished for that desperately, I always kept doing it because I loved what I was doing. I loved what I was making. So I think that's the secret, is following that joy and trusting your instinct, trusting whatever you think is funny.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
what you love and love what you do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's some of the best advice we can put on a podcast. So I that summed it up. I don't have anything else to say unless you do. And you're, I mean, I know you got to get your hair done. I could talk to you all day. Actually, we could make this a 4-hour
I
podcast.
know. This is so fun, Todd.
I hope this was okay. I didn't mean
Well,
to talk over
absolutely.
you.
I
Um, I'm
loved it.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better at shutting up and letting my guests talk. I really wanted to shut up so you could get some stories out because I really have such a high respect for you, and I'm
Oh,
honored that you would come
this
on.
is a
So
total blast.
yeah, it was
And it's
awesome.
such a brilliant idea for a podcast because, like, I adore hearing weird stories from the stage. Like, it's like my favorite thing. I could listen to
Same.
it all day.
Yeah, same. It's like how the sausage is made. You want to hear that kind of stuff, but then through a lens of like, what about one that really screws up?
Oh gosh, because it's like we've all been there, and it's so
Yeah.
like satisfying to know we're not alone.
Well, also
And
because it could break some people. You know, some people can
yes,
break it. I'm never doing this again. It's like, no, come on. Like, this is part of it. Like, you gotta. This is part of it, and part of it is kind of like enjoying the fuck ups and like and
yes,
and leaning into it and be like, hey, this is okay too.
please laughing, enjoying the laughing at them later. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Later. Usually it's later, but at
yeah,
least you can find a place to laugh at it later. It's
yes,
better.
yes.
Morgan, I'm so grateful.
Todd, this was a total blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Please follow her on Instagram. She's amazing. Please follow her on Patreon. She's got some amazing subscription services, a lot of great merch. Follow her characters. They're hilarious. Anyway, love you, Kara. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Todd.
Take care.
Bye. You too.
Bye. All right, bye.
Bye.
And that was Kara Morgan. She's amazing. Follow her, seriously, on Instagram, on all the socials, YouTube. She makes her living doing this, and she has made the transition from singer to sketch artist, comedian, multiple characters, Groundlings, Sunday Company. I mean, you name it. She's a hustler, and she does the work. And that's what this podcast should be about, doing the work and talking about silly stories when things go wrong. Thanks. This is Todd Strange, Strange Story. Yeah, that was a... Yeah, I'm just going to leave that in. It was good. Thanks. This is Todd Strange. Strange Stories from the Stage. See you next time. Take care.